Okay, so I will start. So I you all have your coffee. I have mine. It's nice and warm, and I'm delighted to be here with all of you today to talk about communication, written communications, and how to reach audiences with impact and in an appropriate tone. So I want to start by, and of course, we're going to make this quite informal. I haven't prepared any slides, but I have made some notes to make sure that I'm following a structure and I don't forget anything. Feel free to interrupt halfway through if you have questions, or we can wait until the end. Either or, it is just a conversation that is meant to be engaging and informative. Okay, so I'm going to start by talking about tone of voice. So what is tone of voice? There are many descriptions to describe tone of voice, but tone of voice is not personality. Our personality is something that is being formed by our values. Our personality doesn't tend to change too much through our life, but our tone of voice is, because our tone of voice is something that we're going to adapt to different audiences and at different circumstances. Let's say that I'm not communicating the same with a 13-year-old than I will communicate with a CEO of a company, or with a colleague, or with my mother. This is a completely different kind of communication. And this is where we need to look at and adapting to that type of communication. Saying that, using different language is going to be appropriate to different situations. Sometimes we need to use very simple language. In other situations, or sometimes when we're writing a report that is talking about a very complex issue, we might need to use more complex language. And it depends whether the audience understand that topic, we will use that type of language. If it's a language that is too complicated for our audience, then it's going to get lost. I'll give you some examples. And this is more about corporate communication. So I have worked, and I might sort of expand on this later on with these examples, but I have worked for various organizations. One of them, it was the Economist newspaper. The style of writing is, the Economist newspaper was established in 1843. So it's got a type of language and communication that is very, very professional, kind of reaches a type of audience. And because I worked at the Economist newspaper, I had to adapt the way I communicated internally and externally, because I have to represent my company where I'm working. And if their style is very formal, I have to be very formal, even though I might be super informal in my day-to-day, or perhaps working with my colleagues. And then I moved to another organization. It was an energy company, but it was very entrepreneurial, young, dynamic. And this company wanted to reach the consumer in such a way that they wanted to get into the consumer's house. So, for instance, they will open up an email to a customer by, instead of saying, "Dear Mr. Morales, Mrs. Morales," they probably would say, "Hello, Eva." Again, very informal, sort of more human. So these are two examples of the corporate communications. If you're working for a client as a consultant that uses a very formal language, you should adapt to that type of communication. If you're working for a client that is more sort of chatty or more informal in the way they communicate, then try and mirror that. However, always make sure you're professional and polite and courteous in your communication, whether it is through a report or through an email. Okay, what I want to talk to you now, and I think this is important, is how to write emails. You can ask me questions about reports if that's something that also interests you. But we're going to talk about writing an email that is impactful, an email that is going to be read and is going to be actionable. So first of all, when you're going to write something, always ask yourself the why, the who, and the what. So why am I writing this email? Why? Because I want to get some information. Okay, who am I writing this for? what is it for the reader? How are they going to sort of action this email? And what tone should I use? Is it someone that I know very well, or is it someone that actually they don't know me? Is the first email, the first contact that I'm going to make with this company or with this person? So I give you some, I got a few bullet points to talk about the rule of writing an impactful email that I hope is going to help you going forward. So first of all, I would say be human. When you're writing an email, imagine the emails of today is like sort of picking up the phone and talking to someone. So be human. Write as you talk. Email shouldn't be too formal. What I would say is a tip not to be too formal is to always use the active voice as opposed to the passive. An example would be, for instance, I will send you further information instead of further information will be sent to you. I always find when I receive an email that will tell me such a thing, further information will be sent to you. I'm always thinking, who is sending me this information? The company, the person? This is a little bit, I want to connect to my reader. So I will send you some information. So try to always use the active voice as opposed to passive. And now we're moving into sort of what's the first thing I'm going to do to write an email. So the first thing is the subject line. And think about writing an email as if you're knocking on somebody's door, right? So I'm going to knock on somebody's door, and are they going to open the door to me? If my knock is going to be strong and confident, likely they will. If it's vague and is faint, the door won't open. So your subject line should give most of the information that you're going to talk about. So if I write introduction in a subject line, introduction to what? So I'm receiving this email and I'm saying, what are they introducing me to? Who is this person? I don't know you. So if I don't know you, I want more information. So maybe you could say something like introduction to a new software program. So because it's important for my company, I will open the email. Or if it is that you want to organize a meeting with someone, rather than just say, I don't know, update, because update, what kind of update is this about? So you might say something like proposing a meeting on Thursday to update you on the latest research. So I already know what you're telling me is of interest to me, and I'm going to go in and open this email to find out more. So, okay, so you knock on your door, on a door, and your subject line was great. The person understood it and wanted to open it. Right, so what do you do next? Because they opened the door, but now you need to get that foot in the door. So I'm using this metaphor because I love using metaphors. So now you need to use an appropriate greeting. So how are you going to address this person? If you know the person, it's easy. You know how this person likes to be addressed. If it's casual, you can say hello Eva or good morning Eva. If you don't know them and you're not so sure, always try to be safe and maybe say dear Eva or dear Miss Morales. Depends whether you're not sure whether the cultural barrier could be a little bit maybe more formal. Let's say in different cultures, and I work internationally with many countries and different cultures, and I've always made sure I research how different cultures like to be addressed. For instance, in America, people tend to be less formal. So, I mean, sometimes you hear people saying, hi, John, or hey, John. But if you go to Japan, you find it quite interesting because you never address someone by the first name. You always have to say, doesn't matter whether they're young or older, you always use their second name. or their family name, because the first name is too familiar. People don't tend to use it. So I will always say, dear Mr. Makamoto. I don't know whether that's a Japanese surname. I just made it up, but it sounded Japanese. So just make sure that you're sure that the first line is correct. So I will give you sort of dear Eva, dear Miss Morales, good morning, hi, or hello. And the first line, okay, so now you got your foot in the door. You give a good sort of greeting line. And now you want to talk your first line. What is it going to be? If you've done your research, let's say that you're going to talk to someone you never met before. Try and see if you can find a common interest with that person. Try and research that person. Make sure that your email is directed to the right person. For instance, I'll give you an example. I have an ex-colleague of mine who is very senior working at Visa. She's the global director for communications and artificial intelligence. She made a complaint the other day in LinkedIn saying that she's receiving many emails that they're nothing to do with her area. Now, this is very annoying because we have many emails that come into our inbox today. So you have to ensure that you research that person. And if I'm going to write to, for instance, the HR director of an organization, I'm not going to sort of talk to them about a product development that I'm organizing and they might be interested about, because maybe HR has nothing to do with that. So that, maybe they opened my email, they opened the door, I said the right greeting line, but now I'm talking about something that is completely nothing to do with them, hoping that they might forward that email to someone else. And what they're going to do is they're going to close the door and delete my email because they're too busy. So make sure you do your research and the person you're communicating with is the right person. And if you can find something in common, let's say that you research the company you're going to be talking to, and this company is very interested in reducing plastic pollution. Great. So then you can go in, your first line it could be something like, I'm aware of all the wonderful work you're doing around reducing plastic pollution. Therefore, I get in contact to tell you about a solution that I'm working on. And then you introduce yourself. Hello, my name is blah, blah, blah. I'm a consultant working for an organization that is helping organizations reduce plastic pollution. So, okay, so this woman is interested in, or this man, or this person I'm contacting is interested in the subject. It's very clear what you're going to talk about. And then another tip is always the action that you want to create in that email. That the action should be sort of very much at the front. So if what you want to do is potentially organize a call or a meeting, make sure that's clear at the front. I have this solution that is very interesting and I'd like to present it to you. And perhaps we could do a call to explain more. And then you go into the next stage. So the person already knows that you have a solution for plastic pollution. She's interested in this because you've done your research. And now you sort of say, I would love to have the opportunity to tell you more about this. So they know that you just want to have that conversation. Okay. And then we go into the middle of the email. So you presented yourself, you got your foot in the door because what you presented is interesting. And now you're going to talk about the message. Okay, the message needs to be short and it needs to be concise and to the point. I often come across emails that are so long and they're so complicated, it takes me so long and I just end up deleting them. I'll give you some fact. I just looked at some of the statistics. 269 billion emails are sent and received every day. Wow, that's a lot. We get an average of 68 emails a day. So if something is not very relevant, I just never going to open it. And if it's long, I will delete it. So make sure it's short and it catches the attention of the reader. So we talk about the subject line, we talk about the greeting, the first opening line, and then the middle. So you might have a product that you want to describe, you might have a solution, you might have something that you want to communicate. You don't need to say it all in this email. You just need to give a quick outline of what it is, with a hope that you will have another time to organize a call and explain it in more detail. So think about this. It has to be professional, it needs to be easy to read, and it doesn't have to have too much information. What examples can I give you? Yes, sometimes you just have too much that is too complicated to read. I could send you, actually, this is a good idea. Because I collected some information over the years, I will send you, following this session, the do's and don'ts and some examples. You can see the difference, what sounds right and what doesn't. And I'm sure you will experience the same. When you read something, it needs to be clear. So if I want to talk about my solution about plastic pollution, and I can say my solution could be an incentive to your employees not to use plastic. And my product is going to provide you with data analytics to report your sustainability reporting at the end of the year. I don't need to explain how I do it and the inside outs and how much it costs and how it works. It's okay. I just have to give 3 bullet points of what my solution will do. If you like, and then you move on to the ask. Thanks very much for your time. It will be wonderful to have a conversation over the next few days or at your convenience. Kind regards, right? So this is my simple closing line, which is going to be very straightforward. I'm not going to go into, I would appreciate your feedback and this is wonderful. Just very simple. Thank you so much for your time. I look forward to speaking with you. Kind regards, or best wishes, or best regards, or depends who you're talking to. Maybe you sincerely or yours truly. That's very formal. But again, I think I will combine all this into a little presentation so you can read it through the right examples. Okay. There you go. So you knock on the door. They open the door for you because you were brilliant with your subject line. Then you starting greeting was perfect. It was inviting. I wanted to hear more. We have things in common. You understand my company. You understand my challenges or whatever it is. And so I let you in and you sat down. We had a coffee together because I like what you said. And you ended up in a way that I was convinced that I actually want to invite you back into my house for another conversation. So there you are. So you just wrote the perfect. Other things to think about. Okay, don't use emoticons on your emails. Some of these things are quite simple rules, but no emoticons on emails. For instance, it's okay if it's to colleagues or oh, well, Laura, I like your background. Now you have a very futuristic background. Anyway.
Sorry, I didn't mean for that to be distracting.
That's all. So
Laura, stop changing your background. It's distracting. Just kidding.
I didn't mean for it to be. Carry on, Eva, carry on.
So don't use emoticons. Again, like I said, it's okay between us or between colleagues. So if you know the person very well, of course, I do that. I send loads of the smiley faces between colleagues and friends, but not in a formal environment. Don't overuse exclamation marks. Also, it's not good writing to put too many exclamation marks or too many question marks either. Never use capitals in emails. It feels like you're shouting. Emails or reports, only like for headings. You could do that for headings, but even that, I'm not a fan of capitals of subject lines either. What else is important? I got more tips here. Okay. Be very specific with your questions. When you ask someone to actually be specific. So let's say that you're writing an email to your boss and you want them to review your latest report or research that you are undertaking. Instead of saying, please, can you review my report? Be more specific. Please, can you review the research on that I'm doing, blah, blah, blah. So they know exactly what they have to review, because maybe a report is too large. Or can you review my proposal? What do you want me to review from the proposal? Do you want me to review that in the proposal you're quoting $200,000 to this company, and is this appropriate? Is it the pricing that you want me to review, or is it your opening lines on how you explain in the proposal? So be very specific when you're asking someone to do something, so they don't have to guess, or they don't have to go back to you and say, tell me exactly what you like me to review. So be specific. If you send in emails that they don't require an action, just said, just sending you this for your information, so you're kept in the loop of the progress we're doing. No need to action. So I know I just have to read it and I don't have to do anything with that. Sometimes I like it very much to use bullet points within emails, not too many, but just when you want to send a message with clear ideas, maybe just write 1, 2, 3. These are the findings, 1, 2, 3. I will expand further when we speak, but at least it's kind of clear, because bullet points help us read faster. Always, sometimes it's good to use bold in emails, but not too much. Again, don't overuse bold, but if it's something really important, maybe you're talking about, I don't know, you've got some really interesting data findings and you find out that 60% increase on sales. Maybe you might highlight 60% because you really want to draw the attention to that figure, but just only if you think it's really important and without too much overuse. Other tips I can give you is the signature. Every time you communicate, obviously externally, make sure there is a signature in your email. Your name, your company name, your telephone number, and your, telephone number if that's appropriate, and your email address. It's just a way of presenting yourself. It's like giving a business card to somebody that you never met. When you're writing emails to people as well, and they haven't got back to you and you want to chase for that answer, I think as a rule of thumb, I normally give people 48 hours. Unless it's something very urgent and you have a good relationship with that person and you need an answer today, and is your colleague, that's okay. Maybe you can say, I'm so sorry to bother you, or I'm so sorry to following up, but I really need an answer because I need to file my report today. Okay, this is okay. But if it's an external client, maybe I will give them 48 hours before chasing, because otherwise, if you're hassling people a little. I always I know this is not always possible, but try to always respond to communications within 24 hours. I have worked with many CEOs and they had that rule of thumb that emails had to respond within 24 hours, just to show that respect to the person that is sending you that email. I think that's very much it. Remember, always your beginning, your middle, and your end. It's like a sandwich. And I will end, since we're having coffee and I'm getting hungry with my coffee because it's mid-morning, think about a cake. The email communication will be good as a cake you want to eat if it's professionally done and if it's got the right ingredients. Then you make the perfect cake and everyone is happy. And now I'm open to questions.
I have a question, but I'll wait for other people to ask.
Okay.
Does anyone have their hand up, or Mahmoud? I'm sure you've got a question.
Of course.
Yeah, Mahmoud always has questions.
No, I'll let other people ask first.
That's a good thing, Mahmoud. That's a good thing. That's a compliment. It's not a bad thing.
I don't see any hands up, so I'm going to take the opportunity then. One thing that I struggle with is being introduced to colleagues or connections. I mean, in business, you always want to broaden your network and you want to meet as many people as possible so you can collaborate with them or work with them or get them involved in your projects. But for me, it's really hard because I'm very proactive and I want instant gratification. So I just want to take an email and send it and say, hello, I'm Lara, please talk to me. Or I've heard of you through, I wouldn't say that, but I would send an email and say, like my colleague mentioned you. But I think I've learned that the appropriate way to do it is to have someone introduce you first, or like the mutual connection introduce you first, because I think people getting emails from contacts that aren't in their lists, they tend to either push them down or they don't open them because they're not aware of the email. So intro emails is one of the things that I've had to get used to, about asking people to do an intro email for me and then going through that process first before just going ahead and emailing a client or a connection, and then how to respond to intro emails. Eva, you did an intro recently, quite a few. So the best way, I'm still a bit wary. I think it also involves knowing who you're speaking to and like, the company and what they're about. So it's always difficult to kind of figure out how the tone of that email should be, and saying, greeting your new connection, but also saying thank you for the introduction to the, I don't know if this is making sense. I find it difficult to reply to those emails or to,
Yes, I think it's a great question, and this is something I do regularly. Making introductions is something I've done since I was born, I would say, but that's probably too early. I didn't know how to write emails then. But it's been part of my professional career and making those introductions, and I believe in the power of collaboration. And you might meet two organizations or two people that you feel that really benefit from talking to each other. So from the point of view of myself making the introduction, for instance, what I will do is, first of all, I go and talk to each individual and I will introduce them before connecting anybody, because if suddenly an email arrives in my inbox by someone that I know introducing me to somebody else that I haven't heard of, even though I know one of them, I might think, well, I don't have time for this, or I'm not sure I'm interested, or I might be in a moment in my life that I actually don't have the time, interest. So it's always better to check with the two parties and say, I would like to introduce you to this person because, and give a reason why, because why do you connect to people is because you think there are synergies and both of you are going to benefit from connecting with each other. So it's finding that common knowledge, which it could be about, you're both interested in this topic. Why don't you talk? Because you might sort of have a discussion that might lead to something. Or because I know that you need, you're looking for a new trainee to come in and join. And I actually met a trainee that wants to come and join. So there is a common interest. So it's finding, first of all, the common interest, and then talk to both parties. Both agree and said, great, love to connect. And then you write an intro email to say, first of all, you start with, dear Lara, I'd like to connect you with Eva because Lara is blah, blah. And you sort of talk about who Lara is and what her interests are. Lara is the CEO of this company that's offering a wonderful solution. And Lara, and Eva is got a company that's looking for these solutions, and she's a wonderful entrepreneurial lady who wants to expand her network. So you're also nice to each other, and you connected two people that you respect. And then sometimes if you just want to make an introduction and you don't want to be involved because it's not your area, it's just two people you know, and you're not going to be involved in this conversation, you say, I hope you find ways of collaborating. Exciting to see what might come of this. Over to you. And you just say something like, over to you, and bye. And you just kind of get off that conversation, and that's something that doesn't relate to you anymore. If you feel you want to stay in that conversation because maybe you have something to bring to those two parties, then you might say, I look forward to connecting. Perhaps we could organize a call, and I love to also be involved in the conversation. And leave it at that. And Lara, from the point of view of you responding to that email, is thanks very much, Eva, for the introduction. Very nice to meet you, Petros. This guy. Very nice to meet you, Petros. Heard wonderful things about you. Can't wait to connect. And then you might want to suggest a time for a meeting. And thanks very much. Let me know if this works. It's very simple, because at this point, you don't need to go into the reasons why it's great to connect with this person, because you know that there's an introduction, and you will talk about that when you have that one-to-one meeting with them.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
Yes, yeah, very much so. I think the one thing that I know I'm taking up people's time, I'm sorry, just like one more question. How do you know at what point you stop CCing the mutual connection in those emails?
I think very much at that point. So if that person,
once the connection's made,
at the connection, so you respond to the email on CC of that person. So you acknowledging, it's an opportunity for you to thank the person who has introduced you. And then you said, what about a meeting, blah, blah. And then that should be the last email, because then you don't want to, as the person that I'm introducing, I don't want to, again, my email is clogged up with information that I don't need to be part of that. So I think at that point.
Okay, awesome, thank you. Okay, great. We have a question from Lama and Mahmoud.
Hello.
Whoever wants to go first.
Hello.
Hello.
Yeah. Hi, we can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
I have a question. If I want to send especially as I'm a fresh graduate, I don't have much practical experiences.
This is a very good point. So I would say, if you're applying for a job that is a vacant that's been advertised, again, subject line will be something like application for the head of department or training consultant for advertised in blah blah. So you sort of give that sort of subject line straight away, and then you talked about think about the skills you have. Most jobs you need two things: technical skills, so your abilities to do the job, and then you have your soft skills, which would be things that you can bring to an organization. For instance, your organization skills, your ability to communicate effectively. You might be very technical from a IT perspective, perhaps, or from whatever subject matter you're working on from the financial perspective or economics, whatever that is. So you will introduce yourself by saying, hello, my name is, and I'm a recent graduate. My interests are, and you talk your interest. Make sure your interests have something to do with the company you're approaching, so they could really see a synergy. And you would have done quite a lot of research on the organization, so you can write about how your experience, again, not too long, because you might want to put together your curriculum vitae for them to look into detail. So that's a next step, but sort of list perhaps bullet points, and I like this as well, maybe 3 or 4 or 5, 3 to 5, not too many, bullet points why you think you will be an asset to this organization, because your ability to develop critical thinking and your training through your degree and your qualifications will make you an ideal candidate, and you will have the opportunity to bring to make an impact in the growth of the organization. It depends, but again, short and punchy. Not to write too much, and make it clear. Sometimes another thing I should say, paragraphs and sentences. When you write, especially, I mean, you might write this in Arabic, but if you want to write in English, make sure the sentences are never too long. English people get very annoyed when they're reading a very long sentence, and make sure to know if your sentence is too long, try and read the sentence without breathing, without taking a breath. So if you get out of breath, it's because it's too long. And then the paragraphs should be, again, 3 or 4 lines, no very long paragraphs, because they're harder to read. I hope that helps.
Yes, of course. Thank you so much.
Mahmoud, go for it. And Judy has also got a question. We got so many questions. Okay, it's fine, go.
Okay. I just wanted to ask something relevant to what Lama just asked. When sometimes we need to reach out to people for mutual benefit, either for like cold job hunting or like sales calls, for example, when you're trying to reach out to a client or apply for a job that is not advertised. What's the appropriate way to reach to like internal emails without sounding awfully creepy?
Awfully creepy.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're going to, so you identify the HR director of this organization, right? So first of all, you could either go directly to the HR director, or if you're interested in joining maybe the finance team, you can maybe write directly to the finance director. I don't know, sometimes there are different avenues into an organization, but make sure you go to the right area. So if you go to sort of the right area and the HR director, I don't think there is anything creepy about sort of writing to them and sort of saying, I have an interest in your organization because I have something to bring. Remember that a job is an exchange. So you exchange your knowledge and your productivity and what you bring into an organization, and then they employ you, and then they'll give you a salary and a career. So it's an exchange. So you are interested in them, but they are interested in you as well, because they need to have resources in the organization. And if your skills are adequate for the organization you're planning for, I cannot see why you will be sounding creepy. So all you're saying is sort of what I talked about earlier, just to say.
Because you can use like internal contact to get the email, which sounds kind of creepy. I don't know what are the good ways to do that without like asking someone inside the company, because you can put them at risk too. It's not always a good idea.
Oh, I see what you mean. Is sort of getting email addresses. Yes, I mean, the rule with email addresses, this is a little personal. I have to say, if you're a HR director, you're going to expect people to write to you. The people that will get in contact with you will be probably recruitment agencies, but also people that want to work in your organization, because that's your function. So I don't think a HR director or a HR manager will be upset by receiving an email from a candidate. And if the organization, because some for us, please write to this email. And it could be an email that is hr@google.com. So you make sure you follow, you do your research. There are some organizations that really don't like to be sort of bombarded with emails. So if you get an indication that they're giving you an email and some procedures for you to follow in order to get in contact, do that. if your friend of yours works in that organization and know the email address, maybe you can ask your friend, can you introduce me? Or can you send this email to them and see if they're interested? And if so, then maybe I will follow up with an email directly to that person, if that's more appropriate. Because you are right, sometimes it depends on the organization. This is not a rule of right or wrong. Some people get upset about receiving emails that they're unsolicited. But the worst that can happen is that they're going to delete it and never call you back, or they're going to respond to you and say, please don't email me. I know you don't want to be in that situation. But I would say, just use your common sense and research. Make sure you follow the right channels.
Thank you, Eva. Very insightful.
Eva, I have a question, please.
Sure.
When writing informal emails, no, sorry, not informal, but less formal emails, and sounding more humane and using your active voice, just like you said, rather than the passive, does that apply to people that I'm emailing for the first time, or people that I don't email that often, like the manager of other departments or other branches, or the CEO of the company that I'm working in? Does that still apply? Or am I going to sound rude to them?
Not necessarily. I think when we talk about being human, we don't mean about being too casual. It's not that you're going to say, if I'm writing to the CEO of a company that I've never spoken to before, I'm not going to go and say, hey, John, how you doing? Because that's probably, I don't know who you are, and you being too casual with me. I don't like it. So it is being polite, being professional. To passive. Passive means that I'm not engaging with you. I don't know who I'm talking to. I'm talking to an organization, or I'm talking to Judy that is writing to me. So again, polite, of course, but not overly. So for instance, if I'm going to write to a manager in my organization, maybe I haven't met before, but he works in my company where I'm working, I might not said, dearest Miss, I don't know, Mrs. Smith, because it's probably a little bit too formal. So it works in my company, we're all colleagues. She might be the top CEO. And again, I mean, there's a fine line. You also need to always see how that person likes to be treated. And you might be able to assess this. Okay, I'll give you an example. So I used to work back to The Economist. I used to work for the CEO of The Economist. He was a very formal man. And I knew that I always had to address to him. It doesn't matter how well I knew him, because I worked very closely with him and I was his business manager. But I was still extremely respectful in the way I communicated with him, because he was a very serious and very, very, I don't know, he had a style that it was extremely formal. So I understood, and I always communicated with him that way. And from that job, I went to work for a man who was young and dynamic and entrepreneur. And he was always like, hey, Eva, how you doing? So I couldn't go to him and said, hello, Mr. Fitzpatrick, because Mr. Fitzpatrick would have told me, what are you talking about? I don't like it. He would have been offended. So I think you need to try, if in doubt, be professional and be polite. Don't go. So it's better to say, I mean, I sometimes receive emails that I don't like to be called Mrs. Morales, because not that I don't like it, but it's too formal for me. But sometimes I receive that. Hello, Mrs. Morales. And then I respond in a way that I say, hello, Judy. And now Judy knows that it's okay to call me Eva, because I didn't respond with, hello, Mrs. So I said, hello, Judy. So I'm opening a door for you to treat me and call me Eva. So is that answering the question?
Yeah, so from what I understood, that it depends on the personality I'm addressing to a certain extent. Yeah.
Yes. If in doubt, always be polite and wait until that communication is open. So for you to explore further. But at the end of the day, always use the active voice with when you write an email, because
Yeah.
you connect with the reader much more.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for your answer.
No problem.
Razan has a question. Go ahead, Razan.
Yes, hello. Does anybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we can hear you clearly.
Yes, I changed I would just like to touch upon what Lama have said. So when I'm applying to a certain job, either addressing the company or the HR manager or whatever, should I just write the applying and write the job title? Then I just post emailing my resume only, or should I write something in the email?
You should definitely write something in your email. It's very important. So subject line, let's say that you want to apply for a head of finance position because that's where you are. You might say subject line, application for a head of finance of the department.
Yeah, so could be the subject.
That could be the subject line. So just be clear what you're writing about. So application for, or in response to a job, or please find my resume in relation to the head of finance position,
Yeah.
or a head of finance opening. If there is no vacancy available, maybe you can call it as an opening, or as a head of finance or financial. Let me think about that. Sustainability consultant, I think I was sustainability consultant, expert opening. Don't know. And then you start with your good morning, Mr. X, Mr. Smith. As a recent graduate in finance, I would like to apply for a position within your organization because I believe skills and my abilities could be extremely beneficial, or will be the perfect fit for your organization. Something along those lines.
Cover letter, maybe.
You could also do a cover letter. Yes, I mean, a cover letter is also a very good idea. But the email, so there will be two things. So if you're going to, I think I would put it on an email better than a cover letter. I mean, it depends, and you again go back and research how these companies want to work. Some organizations, if I'm the HR director and you send me an email and I have to read the email and then the cover letter as well, perhaps within the body of the email you can already do a little summary of the cover letter, and you can just give those bullet points of what your skills are and why you think you'll be the right candidate to work for this organization. What are you bringing to this organization? Why would they be interested in hiring you? So you express that, and then you say something like, thank you very much. I would be very interested I'll be at your disposal if you'd like to find more information, and I would be open for an interview so you feel that my skills and expertise will be an asset to your organization or will be valuable to you. So I'm open. I can send you some examples as well that I can, if it helps you, I'll send you some examples that they could be quite impactful, again, with your bullet points, and always think in threes, beginning, middle, and end.
Yes. Thank you so much. That was helpful.
You're welcome.
Do you have any more? Oh, you do.
Yes, me, please. Eva, you're a consultant for 3 projects, and you oversee or you supervise 20 members or
Yes.
trainee consultants. I'm sure a lot of them have emailed you, messaged you privately, and interacted with you
Yes.
in terms of written communication. If there's one advice you would give to us regarding our written communication skills, what would that be?
Very good question, and thank you for asking this question on behalf of everybody, I'm sure. My advice is that be clear in your communication. Go straight to the point. With me, you can be human, you can be informal in terms of we're working together as colleagues. You don't need to be super formal with me, because I'm okay with not having a really strict formality in our communication. I don't think any of you are, so because I think I sort of show that I'm very kind of an open person, and you can talk to me in a very human manner. Of course, politeness. I know you all are super polite. I have never received anything impolite, completely the opposite. But be very clear with your messaging as well. And if you want me to review anything, again, be very specific of what it is I need to review. And yes, so again, short and clear. And so I know exactly what I'm looking at, as opposed to, I'm not understanding this, can you explain? Tell me exactly what you don't understand, so I know what to explain, rather than, because all of you know that I talk a lot. So I ended up talking too much. So it helps me if it's a specific. So short, clear, and to the point. And with me, you can send me smiley faces. It's okay.
Okay, I'll make sure to distribute your advice to all the members. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
Shadeen has raised her hand. You can go ahead, Shadeen.
Hello, my question is it appropriate to send more than one email in the same day, or like I have to wait until tomorrow to send? Like if I ask a question, like is it appropriate to ask another question in another email, or like I have to wait?
Again, it depends who you're talking to. So if it's someone that you're working very closely with and it's related to a different topic, of course, you can send 2 emails. It's not that you're only allowed to send 1 email a day. When we're working together, let's say in a project, let's say both of us, we're working together and you're looking at a piece of work, and suddenly you have a question now, and you're thinking, okay, I need to know this question. So you might send an email to ask an action, and then something else might arise, so you can do that. Okay. But let's say that you have 20 questions. Suddenly you're going to send 20 emails to that person with 20 questions. Okay, this is too much. Because imagine maybe I'm receiving 20 emails from you and 20 from everyone, so I can't get to everything. So I would suggest, if you think you might have a few questions, just trying to get through your piece of work, and then try to collect all those questions and just put them in 1 email. You said, I have a few doubts. And if you think it's too much, maybe just say, I got so many questions that I will receive that, and I will need to answer 20 questions on your email. If that's the case, maybe it's much quicker that we do a call. So you might say, Eva, I'm looking at this project and I have quite a few questions relating to, and then maybe you give me a head up related to the financial model, related to the business proposal, whatever it is. Can we have 10 minutes to discuss? And this is easier.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Does anyone has a question? Anyone else? I think we're good. Mahmoud has raised his hand. You can go ahead.
Thank you, Judy. I was going to ask Eva, when do you think it's not appropriate to communicate through email and instead pick another mode of communication, like meeting or phone call?
I will say, if you want to talk about something that's very lengthy and needs a lot of explanation, you're going to end up writing a very long email, which is going to mirror an essay you do or a report, and it's too much information. So sometimes it's easier to do this face-to-face or to do over a conversation. So in the same case that I just mentioned now is, maybe just say, I have so much to discuss relating to this. So the person knows what you want to talk about and is clear. So that person is prepared of what the subject. Think about, no one likes surprises. So if I send you an email, can we talk? You might say, what are you going to talk to me about? Have I done something wrong? Is it good news? Is it bad news? Give me context. So always give context to people when you communicate, always. So people are always prepared to know what they're talking about. But I would say, yes, I mean, I don't think emails. One thing is interesting. Okay. If let's say that someone is upset you, send an email because I'm very annoyed with my colleague. He's done something I don't like. And you read this email that really upset you for whatever it is. Okay. My advice is never respond. Get up, go for your walk, have a coffee, breathe, read it again. Okay. And because sometimes we're very quick in responding. Okay. And sometimes you need to sort of reflect. And if you want to discuss something that you're upset about, maybe go and respond and say, thank you for your email. Can we have a quick call? And then you discuss it face to face rather than send an angry email. Sometimes communications, written communications can be a little bit misinterpreted. So that's just
Great advice. Thank you, Eva.
a problem.
Do we have other questions, or should we make this a wrap? Anyone else? Okay. I think there aren't any more questions, Eva.
Okay.
So thank you so much for your time and
You're
for this
welcome.
informative session.
Can I add one more thing that I think I've forgotten to
Yeah,
say,
of course.
and it's very important. You see,
Please.
my mind goes to many places. It's disorganized here sometimes. Proofread. Make sure you proofread also your email. And it's very typical. Sometimes when we write, our mind goes much faster than as we type, and sometimes we can miss a word. So what I tend to do when I write an email, that is especially if it's something very important, is I write it, I leave it in my inbox for 10 minutes in my drafts, and then I go away. I have another coffee. I have many coffees a day. I come back, and then I will reread my messages aloud. And sometimes it helps you if you read it aloud, and it makes more sense. Make sure, because this is your credibility and the credibility of the person you represent or the organization. So make sure you always proofread and have a really beautifully written email. And if you need any tips or any help, I'm here to help. And thank you all.
Thank you so much, Eva, for all your advices and for the session, for taking the time
Pleasure.
to get this constructive session. Thanks so much.
Have a great day.
Thank you so much.
You
Bye.
too. We'll see you in another session. Bye.
Bye.